Christ is in our midst. Well, brothers and sisters, this is that great feast among many feasts in August and September, early September. And on this occasion, Jesus takes Peter, James, and John up to what's called Mount Tabor, and it's there that he was revealed to these apostles in his glory. And what is this revealing like? I think that's the first question. It's not so much what Jesus says. It's not so much those there that are with him, but more the fact that that moment they see him bathed in this, what's sometimes referred to in this uncreated light, And this vision that the apostles have is important not only to glorify God, but also to, in effect, glorify human beings. Now, what does that mean? The apostles were able, at that moment, to do what? They were able to see Jesus, weren't they? They were able to see Jesus in a different light. They were able to see the presence of the heavenly light upon everyone there. And this became sort of the basis upon which in future theological disputes and everything about the nature of human beings being able to understand and see and be with God became a very central sort of an idea. More often than not, we tend to, in our thoughts, place the thought of God or the presence of God far away. But in this case, it was something very immediate. And later on in theological disputes about the life of the church and what human beings are capable of seeing and understanding about God, it was pointed out that the apostles on Mount Tabor that accompanied Jesus had a first-hand knowledge, a first-hand vision from their own senses of Jesus himself transfigured in their presence, i.e. they saw this uncreated life. And down to the ages, periodically, there are events that correspond with that. And so this became sort of an understanding that's important for us to kind of grasp as Orthodox Christians. We don't know God indirectly, we know him directly. Now, I think the other thing about this that's important is that we all have moments of prayer, personal prayer, and everything that are very important in our lives. But in this instance, and in most instances you read about it in the Holy Scriptures, it is within the life of the church. Think of the book of Revelation and the vision of heavenly worship there. This experience again of the heavens happens essentially in an environment where everyone is there, in an environment in which our church patterns. I remember once speaking with a young fellow who had grown up around our family and had been kind of tempted to stray away a little bit from orthodoxy. Well, it was Forrest, Forrest. And at that time he was living with us in Davis, and he was starting at UC Davis. His buddy, David, had gone off to UC Santa Cruz, and so I was left with Alex and Forrest, which was fun. But Forrest had decided he was going to be going to a Protestant church, that he'd started doing that before he even arrived. And, being patient and fair and reasonable, I would say, okay, Forrest, well, let us know when you get back. Or when we get back, Forrest would greet me with this expression, "What's for lunch?" You little heretic. Obviously, that's a little bit far-fetched. But at any rate, there was that kind of feeling. Well, so one night he was at church with us. Periodically he would deign to come, and after Vespers one evening, we were standing in the chapel over there at El Camino, a very small, cramped chapel, and he was looking at it again, almost in view of, I think, where he had been worshiping recently, where the layout, so to speak, of most Protestant churches, they differ. They vary a lot. It's quite different. And he just kept looking at the iconostasis and the icons that were on the walls and everything. And I said to him, remember that the church for us, the Orthodox Church is patterned. The way it looks is patterned after the vision of heavenly worship that we read about in the book of Revelation, and we hear about in Isaiah and other instances too, but especially that's the pattern. And something must have clicked in him, because at that moment he went, oh, and I thought, well, maybe we're making a little headway here. I didn't know. But one way or the other, he, from that time forward, he began to come to the Orthodox Church and became, returned, I should say. I hadn't excommunicated him or anything like that, but he returned. And I think it was that understanding ultimately of what the church is, the physical experience of what the church is, that maybe made the path back a whole lot more important. Now I say this because this experience of deification, of seeing the uncreated light, however you want to talk about it, is very much connected with the experience of being together. On Mount Tabor, they are all together. In the church, we are all together. People have individual experiences, but our life, if we want to talk about an experience which I think comes closest, at least for me, which comes closest to that experience of transfiguration, it would have to be here in the church, when we're all together, worshiping together, praying together, receiving the Holy Eucharist, giving thanks to God, singing the Holy God, Holy Mighty, Holy Immortal, have mercy upon us. Because we know that in the Divine Liturgy, heaven and earth meet. We ascend, it descends, it doesn't matter however we want to think about it, but there is a meeting, a coming together of heaven and earth, and we participate, therefore, in the heavenly worship, And this is transfiguring, isn't it? This is transfiguring for us. It changes us. We feel, as old Matushka once said to me, we feel somewhat different. We feel so different when we leave. And to some degree, depending on, I think, our preparation, our level of participation, the things that we do to get ready one way or the other, to some degree, that's what allows us to participate all the more deeply in the Divine Liturgy itself. So I thought about how to talk about the transfigured life with you today, brothers and sisters. And I think what it is ultimately is, it's our life in the church, engaging in the heavenly worship, participating in this every time. Let's not forget that that's what this is. So, I'm going to church, yes. The priest says come to church, so I'll go to church. We can start reducing what's going on here very quickly into something that it isn't. But in fact, it's a gift from God. Our worship is a gift from God. And as we sing the Holy God, Holy Mighty, Holy Immortal, have mercy on us, let us remember that we are joining with the angels in heaven, where the heavenly worship is continuous, which is always being offered up. Thanks be to God for that, and thanks be to God that on this Feast of Holy Transfiguration, we are doing just that, right? So Christ is in our midst.